They broke into the office shouting Allah Akbar. Bridget and her husband were hiding at a corner, praying to God to take control of the situation that has just gotten out of hand. Right before they identified her, pointed at her and dragged her by her collar like a little child, and smashed her head with a metal object. One blow, instantly killing her. Although most reports had it that she was beheaded and her head was paraded like a trophy along the streets of Kano State, her husband's account of the story did not include that detail. This is the unfortunate murder of Bridget Agbahime, a 74-year-old petty trader and pastor's wife who was accused of blasphemy and lynched to her death by a group of Muslim extremists on the 2nd of June 2016 in Kano State, Nigeria. When the news first broke out, it was said that Bridget had an argument with a customer that had come to her shop in the market where she sold kitchen utensils. It was said she had said something about the Prophet Muhammad that did not sit right with the customer, invariably also to other Muslims in the market, which led to her being lynched. But upon further research, this could be further from the truth. Now for context, Bridget is originally an Igbo woman from Imo State and a Christian of the Deeper Life Bible Church who lived with her husband Mike Agbahime, also an Igbo man, in Kano State, northern Nigeria, predominantly a Muslim state with 90% of the population being Fulani and Hausa. So with that in mind, we can move on to the story. But before we move on, please don't forget to like this video and also subscribe if you haven't subscribed. You can also turn on the notification button so you will get notified whenever there is a new video. Thank you so much. Now, according to Bridget's husband, Pastor Mike Agbahime, Bridget had an issue with one particular man named Dauda, and he was the origin and the mastermind of this whole tragedy. It was said that Dauda had a shop in the market, but every morning Dauda would leave his shop and go to Bridget's shop right in front of it to perform ablution. He did it in the morning and in the evening, and Bridget had a problem with it because by the end of the ablution, her frontage was wet and she would have to clean it up. And as if that was not enough, it was said that Dauda was fond of taking goods from his own shop to shade them in front of Bridget's shop in the early hours of the morning. And whenever Bridget confronted him and asked him to go back to his own shop, he always refused until more people spoke on the issue. And before he would leave, it was said that he usually rained insults on Bridget, almost as if this man was trying to bully this woman. It was later learned, that is after this whole tragedy, that Bridget had a very good spot in the market, more like a front row seat to a stage play. The location of her shop was very good for business, which was why Dauda was always fond of bringing his own goods from his shop to shade them at Bridget's spot, just so that he could at least make some good sales before going back deep into the market where his shop was located. Some rumor had it that he had eyes for Bridget's spot, which may have been the origin of his hatred or his target for Bridget. As to why he came there to pray every morning and evening was just something no one could place their hands on. Bridget was said to have reported Dauda several times to the market master by the name of Alhaji Mustafa, who in turn confronted Dauda and asked him to stop praying in front of Bridget's shop. That if he wanted to perform ablution, he could do it right in front of his own shop. Why was he coming to the woman's shop to do it? Alhaji Mustafa warned Dauda directly and threatened to even kick him out of the market if he doesn't stop praying in front of Bridget's shop. But apparently that did not stop Dauda, as this man seemed to be a troublemaker. And of course, Bridget reported to her husband, Pastor Mike. And Pastor Mike is aware of the fact that Dauda was always making trouble with his wife, and because of that, he reported Dauda to the president of the Association of Plastic Sellers in the Kofa Wambai market in Kano State there, and the man's name was Alhaji Aminu. He was the president of the Association of Plastic Sellers. When the reports got to Alhaji Aminu that Dauda was harassing Bridget, performing ablution in front of her shop, and also shading his own goods by her shop, he confronted Dauda and threatened to take him to court if he doesn't stop what he was doing. You would think this would make Dauda stop, but apparently this did nothing for this man, who was bound to cause trouble for Bridget, because on the 2nd of June 2016, the day this incident went out of hand, it was said that Dauda came to Bridget's shop around 3 p.m. to perform ablution. Again, this was a man that has been warned numerous times in the previous days to stop performing ablution in front of this woman's shop, that if he wanted to do it, he should do it in front of his shop. Yet he still came to this woman's shop to perform ablution with his kettle, water and mat. By this time around this 3 p.m., it was said that Bridget was trying to close up and run to church to meet up with her husband. Mind you, her husband also had a shop in that same market, but at a different part of the market. I guess it was a very big market. So he also had his own plastic shop, while Bridget also had her own. So that was what they did for a living, aside the church that they both ran together. When Bridget was trying to close up, that was when Dauda came with his kettle for the purpose of performing ablution again. And it was said that he started the process of praying, and Bridget confronted him and told him, "Could you at least wait for me to close up before you start praying? At least wait for her to close up her shop before he began performing his ablution." Now, it's unclear what the altercation was. It's unclear the exchange of words that went on between Bridget and Dauda. But somewhere along the line, it was said that Dauda grabbed Bridget's hand and asked her, "What did you say? Repeat it again." As though Bridget had said something, but it's unclear what she said. It may have been that Bridget said to him, "Could you have waited for me to finish closing up before you come and do whatever you were doing?" Maybe she might have said, "Before you come and do your rubbish," or "Before you come and mess up this place." Just something out of the words of trying to say whatever he was doing was inappropriate in front of her shop. And that may have triggered Dauda, who was said to have held her hands and asked her to repeat what she said, in which she replied, "How dare you hold my hands? What right did you have to hold my hands?" And she threatened to hit his head with one of the utensils she was selling. At this point, a little crowd of people had gathered in front of Bridget's shop, trying to understand what was going on between Dauda and this 74 years old woman. At the same time, Pastor Mike was closing up his own shop when he got a call from someone in the market close to his wife who attended his own church to inform him that Dauda was making trouble with his wife again. Pastor Mike asked that this man gives the phone to his wife to speak to her to know what was going on, but it was said that the mob of people who had already surrounded Bridget did not let this person give Bridget the phone so that Mike could speak to his wife to know what was going on. And so Mike hurriedly closed up his shop and began to make way for his wife's shop. But before he could get there, the crowd had dispersed because they weren't much, and he saw his wife. And his wife told him everything, that Dauda had come to make trouble, and she asked him to wait for her to close up her shop before he could perform his ablution, in which Dauda held her hands and asked her to repeat what she said, and she threatened to hit him with the utensil. And then the crowd came and they were trying to explain what was going on. It was almost as if this first crowd of people that came was able to understand that Dauda was, at fault, and that the woman did not do anything, which was why they let it all slide in the first place and decided to let her go. And when Pastor Mike heard this from his wife, he was like, "You know what, before we go to church, let's go and report this incident to the market master, Alhaji Mustafa, who was also present in the market." He had a segment in the market that was a story building. And immediately, Bridget and Pastor Mike went to Alhaji Mustafa's office in the market there to lay complaints to him over what had just transpired between Dauda and his wife. So when they came to Alhaji Mustafa, it was already towards the evening, and this was a period of time that the market was closing up. So Alhaji Mustafa promised to handle the situation and told them to come on Saturday, 2 days later. This 2nd of June was like a Thursday, so he told them to come on a Saturday, and that by Saturday he would have met up with Dauda to settle the situation and come to an understanding between these two people. So Pastor Mike and Bridget agreed to come on Saturday, but as they were leaving Alhaji Mustafa's office, down the stairs they saw a crowd of angry extremists with sticks and weapons charging towards the office, as if they were told that this is where Bridget and her husband was. So immediately Bridget and Pastor Mike ran back up to the office of Alhaji Mustafa to tell him that Dauda had gone to organize a crowd of angry extremists. Only God knows what Dauda had told these people, and they came in charging and angry with weapons. There were so many of them. And that was when Alhaji Mustafa figured that this was going to go left. He immediately asked Bridget and her husband to stay inside his office. He locked them inside his office and went down to address the crowd, telling them that they should go home and that he was going to settle this thing by Saturday, that he was looking forward to speaking with Mr. Dauda to settle this issue. But the crowd was not about the issue of the abolition or the shading of Dauda's goods at Bridget's shop. These people had come because they have been told that she had blasphemed against Allah, and that they had come to do what was right. But Alhaji Mustafa kept pleading with the crowd, asking them to go home, that he was going to settle this issue. But the crowd did not stop. They threw stones at Alhaji Mustafa, they charged at him. They even called him a name, Kafir, which meant someone who did not know Allah, or someone who did not know the authorities of Allah. And at the same time, they were charging through him to get to his office because they knew that was where Bridget and her husband was. The crowd was so much, and Alhaji Mustafa knew that he was not going to control this crowd all by himself. Even right before he left his office to come down to address them, he had called the divisional police officer in the area, informing him that there was a crowd charging at his office. And so when he was addressing the crowd and the crowd got angry, they pushed him, threw stones at him. Unfortunately, Alhaji Mustafa slumped. Now it's unclear if Alhaji Mustafa died, but it was said that he slumped, which gave way for the mob to charge towards his office. But before they could get to his office, the divisional area police officer had already arrived. But sadly, he only arrived with 2 other policemen, and these 3 people could not also contain the crowd. And as they tried to hold the crowd back, the crowd charged past them, broke into Alhaji Mustafa's office, immediately identified Bridget, who was with her husband Mike, praying for God to take control of the situation that had gotten out of hand. Unfortunately for Bridget, she was dragged out by her collar like a little child, and instantly it was said that someone struck her head with a heavy metal iron that sounded like a bang, as though someone had just broken a coconut. According to Mike, who saw his wife being attacked, he said the instant they hit Bridget's head, she died. Mike said he was in shock, but luckily for him, the crowd did not touch him because they had come for Bridget, who was the one who had been accused of blasphemy. After they had succeeded in killing Bridget, the crowd was happy. They began chanting as though they had achieved some kind of goal. Although report had it that Bridget's head was decapitated from her body and held in a stick and paraded along the streets of Kano, Pastor Mike's account of what happened to his wife did not include the detail that Bridget's head was cut out of her body. However, it was said that when the police asked Pastor Mike if his wife had died right there in the office, he said yes, that his wife had died, and the policemen talked about calling the ambulance to take her body to the mortuary. Now, when the crowd heard that an ambulance was coming to take Bridget's body to the mortuary, it charged them again. It was almost as if they didn't want her body to get a befitting burial. It was almost as if they didn't think her body was deserving of any dignity. So when they heard that the police was making plans to call an ambulance to take Bridget's body to the mortuary, they charged back into the office as though to get her body, to burn it or just totally destroy it in a way where it is rid out of every dignity. But at this time, the divisional police had called for backup. So by the time the crowd was charging back into the office to get Bridget's body so that they can mutilate it and just make a mess out of it, the backup policemen had arrived and they succeeded in dispersing the crowd, shooting rubber bullets or something just to get all the angry mobs away from Bridget's body, which gave the police and the ambulance the opportunity to get Bridget's body safely to the mortuary. At this same time, news was already spreading. The Christian Association, the president, the governors, so many people were speaking against this brutal attack. So many Islamic leaders were condemning this attack and they vowed that justice must be served for Bridget Agbahime. Instantly, 5 people were arrested in connection to the murder of Bridget, and out of those 5 people, Dauda was included. And it was later said that Pastor Mike was called to the police station to identify the men that have been arrested, and Pastor Mike was able to identify all 5 of them, saying that he even knew them personally, that they all sold at the same market with his wife and him. The police were certain, and these men were kept in prison. Even when they went to court at the first hearing, the defense requested that these men be released, but the court did not permit it. The judge refused to grant them bail, saying that they will remain in prison till the trial is concluded. This gave hope to a lot of Nigerians who had heard the news, who were angry, who were furious, who were already pointing out the fact that this is not about blasphemy. This is about Igbo and Hausa. This is about Muslim and Christian. That they knew damn well that this woman was targeted because she was Igbo and she was Christian, and not because she blasphemed. The Christian Association was already speaking out. Even the governor of Imo State, where Bridget was from, was already vowing that he must do everything within his power to make sure that Bridget got justice. Sadly, by November of that same year, 2016, it was widely reported that all 5 of these men who have been arrested in connection of the murder of Bridget Agbahime were released, and the case was dropped against them, saying that they did not commit any crime. Dauda and the other 4 boys who had organized and orchestrated the lynching of Bridget Agbahime were released. The person in charge of the whole case said that he had to drop the case because he did not see that these people had any case. He did not see that they committed any crime. And despite the reaction and uproar of so many Nigerians who were angry at the fact that these men had been released and that Bridget was not getting justice, nothing still was done. Up till this day as we speak, Bridget Agbahime did not get the justice that she solemnly deserved. The group of people who orchestrated the murder of this 74-year-old woman are still walking the surface of this earth today, freely. And Pastor Mike, when asked, he said that he had to leave Kano State because when the men were released out of prison, he began to get death threats from people who said that he was a witness to the case. With him being alive, there's a chance that this case could go back to court. His life was threatened, his son's life was also threatened, which prompted him to move out of Kano State, a state that he had been living for nearly 24 years of his life. This man had to go back to his hometown in Imo State. And even though he met up with Rochas, who was the governor of Imo State at the time, who promised to bring justice to his wife, nothing still was done up till this very day. The lynching of Bridget Agbahime is one case that still lies in the heart of so many Nigerians till this day. And what is sad is that everyone seems to have moved on. This sadly is the unfortunate story of Bridget Agbahime, the 74-year-old petty trader who was murdered after being accused of blasphemy. So thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this video or this video touched you somehow, it's alright to call out justice for Bridget Agbahime. If you want to, you can post about it, share her story, research about the story, and see if you can get the conversation starting all over again. Hopefully one day she will get the justice that she deserves. Don't forget to like this video, and if you're not already subscribed to this channel, please make sure you're subscribed to this channel. Also turn on your notification button so you don't miss out on any new video that we make.